Hello friends, Amanda here. Welcome back to Handmade Not Hallmark. This is card number 1 of my love themed card series. This card series is going to feature cards that have open-ended love themes. Not necessarily Valentines, but they're cards you want to send to either a friend or a family member to show some kindness, a little bit of love, and that you're thinking of them. This first card was a lot of fun to create. I love the techniques of using ink smooshing and coloring with oxides. I hope you enjoy this card. Let's get into it. I'm going to be using the Spring Peony stamp set from Honeybee, as well as the Inside Kindness stamp set, and a couple of stamps and dies from Simon Says stamp as well, the Crackle background and the Love die. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my background. I'm going to take the Crackle background from Simon Says, and I'm going to use my MISTI to help me get this stamp down. I've got a piece of watercolor cardstock. This is some Bristol Smooth, but you can use any watercolor paper that you like. I'm going to use some clear embossing ink because I plan on using some Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder. This is going to give me a very tone-on-tone look, but once we add color with the oxides, it'll come out really pretty. I really like this background. I think it adds a lot of texture to your cards, and it can be used in a subtle way or it can become the main focus. I'm going to take that white embossing powder and I'm going to coat the back of this panel. Now again, this is going to be pretty difficult to see once I get it all melted, but you can see here as I turn it into the light that really cool crackle effect. I really think this is a neat texture, and I think it could be used for any time of year. Once I get that all heated up, we'll get ready to do our ink blending. Going to be using one of my favorite techniques to add some interesting color to a background. I'm going to do some ink smooshing. This is a really cool technique that a lot of crafters use, and it's really fun and easy to do if you don't mind getting a little messy. I just have some clear packing here from one of my stamps that I purchased. This is a really great way to utilize some pieces and get a lot of use out of them. I'm going to take some colors from my Distress Oxide collection. I have Fossilized Amber, Vintage Photo, and Frayed Burlap. I've never tried these colors together, but I really think they turned out really pretty. I love the kind of subdued colors, and I think it is a really neat color combination. I'm just going to smush those down on my Tonic mat here, and I'm going to spritz them with some spray that I have. I have created like my own glitter spray. You could use just plain water, or you could use a spritz glitter spray, anything that you want. I just wanted to add a little bit of shine to my background. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that plastic and I'm kind of tapping it into that ink, and I'm smushing it all over my background. And that embossing that we did earlier is going to resist all of that ink, and you're going to really see that crackle come to life. And I really like the splotchy nature of this. I think it looks really cool. It almost reminds me of kind of like an old brick wall, and I'm thinking that these flowers are growing off of it, and I think it's a really cool idea. Going in with that frayed burlap, I really like adding this kind of green color, and I was going to add a little bit of blue in there, but I really decided that I liked these colors together, and once they dry, they really kind of fade out and look really cool together. I'm going to go through and hit that with my heat gun just to see where I'm at with the color, to see if I need to add more of the fossilized amber or anything like that. And I really love how this turned out. I didn't really mess with it too much because I have a tendency that if I mess with it too much, I'll end up not liking it. So I get to a point where I like it and I leave it alone. Going to kind of clean up my surface here a little bit, and we're going to stamp down our images. Now, I started stamping before I turned my camera on, so I do apologize for that. But the same process I did here on the second panel is the same process I did on the first panel. So I went through and I chose some of the leaf images and the floral images from this beautiful stamp set from Honeybee. I really love these florals. I love coloring in florals. They're some of my favorites to do, especially with watercolor. I've got another piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp it down with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a watercolor friendly ink, but I'm going to be using some clear embossing powder to go over top of these inked images. And the reason I'm going to be doing this is because with that embossing, it will create a raised edge around the stamped images. And I really like doing that, especially whenever I do any kind of watercoloring on these kind of detailed images. It really helps kind of control my watercoloring and helps me practice. Now again, you could easily leave this step out, if you're really good at watercoloring and staying in the lines, but I really think that this helps me out quite a bit. Once I have all of that put away, we're going to go ahead and melt all of that powder. Once all the powder is melted, I'm going to get straight into the painting. I'm going to be using some of the same colors that I used for the background, with the exception of adding in Squeezed Lemonade and Mowed Lawn, just to add a little bit more color and dimension. I'm going to put on some music for you to enjoy while I'm painting. Once I'm all done painting, we'll come back and finish up this beautiful card together.
I'm used to give all I have. I'm used to get nothing back. Wherever I go, it's the same. There's no excuses, no one to blame. Sometimes I can understand how it can be so hard to stay out of pain. But with you everything has changed, even though we both stay the same. Would you call me on the midnight train? Would you come over when nothing's right? Would you hold me tight in the rain, even as we're having a fight? Say you, say you, say you. I'm used to give up 100 times. It's never been worth it, but now there is so much to say. This time it is different. Sometimes I can't understand how it can be so hard to stay out of pain. But with you everything has changed, even though we both stay the same. Would you call me on the midnight train? Would you come over when nothing's right? Would you hold me tight in the rain, even as we're having a fight? Say you, say you, just say you. Would you call me on the midnight train? Would you come over when nothing's right? Would you hold me tight in the rain, even as we're having a fight? Say you, say you, say you, say you, say you, say
Once all the painting was finished, I decided I wanted to go in and add a little bit of white splatter. Now this is very, very subtle. I probably could have just left this step out. You don't really see it a whole lot because it kind of blends in with the color. I probably should have let these dry a little bit more before I did this, but I just wanted to show you that this is an option if you're into splattering. Again, this is very subtle, and I just used some of my white gouache to create this splattery look, and I really think it looked really pretty. I love these yellow peonies. I'm not sure if peonies come in yellow. I think they do. I think almost all flowers come in yellow. But I really wanted to do the yellow. I really like yellow florals. They remind me a lot of my grandmother. I set those off to the side to dry, and I wanted to work on my greeting. I just took the love die from Simon and I die cut it 3 times out of some white cardstock, and I cut the bubble out of vellum, and I also cut a kind of gold cardstock. I don't plan on using that one. I mean, I use it, but I end up covering over it with a different one, something that I felt would stand out a little bit more. That kind of dull gold one didn't really stand out as much as I wanted it to against the background, so I switched it out a little bit later. All I'm doing is taking some liquid glue and stacking these up to create a nice dimensional die cut. This is one of my favorite ways to add some dimension to a card. It just kind of pops off the page, and I think it really looks cool. Again, I'm going to stack all those up, and here's where I add that gold layer. Again, I plan on covering over it here in a little while, so this does become a fairly thick die cut. I probably could have peeled it off or just re-die cut, but I didn't really feel like doing that or wasting any of this perfectly good die cut here. Again, going to get that all lined up, and we're going to attach to this vellum. Now, I probably could have left the vellum off because once it's on the card, you really can't see it. You can in certain lights, and if you're really looking for it, but I probably could have left it off and it would have looked just fine as well. Just using some barely art adhesive to get all of that adhered, and I'm going to get my mess cleaned up. The next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to take this thin frame from Simon. This is from the frame dies from Simon Says. This is one of my favorite dies to use on cards, especially cards that have elements on them, but you don't really have anywhere to kind of ground them or give them something to kind of be a part of. They're kind of just floating on your background. I really think adding these thin frames, any size or shape, really kind of adds to the look of your card. And this is a really cool technique. It can be a little scary. You do all that work and then you go through and you cut it with a die. But I really think this is cool. I've seen Nicole Sfor use this die a lot, and it is one of my favorite ways to add another bit of color to the card as well. Here's where I change out that cardstock for this kind of shimmery gold cardstock. Now it looks like it might be too bright for this card, but whenever you're using it as just this thin frame, I really think it adds a bit of elegance. Now you have to be very careful with this frame because it is very, very thin. I know Simon has a whole set out of these thin frames that you can purchase. I really like the set that I have because I only ever end up using this particular size. There's something about this size that I really like, and I think it really goes well with these cards. Next, I've got a piece of Simon's 110-pound cardstock for my card base, and I've cut it into a top folding A2 size. And I'm going to get ready to assemble all of our pieces. First, I'm going to start with the background piece, and I'm going to glue that down with some more of this barely art adhesive. I really like using liquid adhesive for this because it helps you get everything lined up and kind of rebuild your puzzle. Get all of that lined up. And I get a little helper, comes in here in a little bit. You'll get to see his little hands here. He wanted to come in and see what I was doing. He was trying to explain to me how scissors work. And he kept wanting to show me how to use scissors. And I told him that he would have to wait and we could learn a little bit later. So he was sitting next to me trying to tell me how to teach me how to use all of my tools, which I thought was really sweet. He loves being a big helper and coming in and watching what I'm doing. He really, really likes using my die cutting machine. He likes to turn the handle. He thinks it's a lot of fun. You can see how much, character just adding in that frame works. I think it looks really awesome. And you can also see that I added in that gold on top of that greeting as well. And I used the coordinating dies to cut out all of those peonies and all of the leaves. And now I'm just kind of arranging how I want these florals to be. And I kind of fussed around quite a bit with this, and I really like the way that it turned out in the end. I love having all of the extra elements, and my little guy loved playing with the flowers as well. He wanted to just be a big help. He kept telling me I need to put this one here, you need to put that one there. So he kind of helped me arrange this, and he thought it looked really pretty. And I get all that. Once I get it all kind of where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to glue it all together. Now this is where you could use, I think people use that press and seal to kind of pick up all your stuff at once, and then you don't have to worry about shifting it around. I don't have any press and seal, but I was thinking about this the whole time I was gluing these together, trying to remember where I had everything. And I was thinking back to several cards that Amy Rasavi had done, and they turned out so cool using that that sticky, I totally just forgot what it was. Press and seal. Excuse me. My brain just does not want to work today. I don't know. Maybe I'm just ready for the weekend. Once I get all of those elements exactly where I want them, I can get them glued down. And I really love how bright these florals look. Just using some liquid glue to help me do that. And I'm really glad that I used the liquid glue because I placed it on here and then it wasn't where I wanted it. I had to turn it so that small bud wasn't covered up by that love die. So I was easily able to just pop it off really quick and put it back in its place. And you can see here, I just love how it looks like the florals are coming out of that love. Looks so pretty. Going to adhere that down with some more liquid glue. I don't add any more dimension to this card other than the big love die and a few dimensional kind of liquid dots a little bit later, just because I didn't want to add too much to it. I felt like it looked really good with just the dimension on the greeting. And there's my little helper helping me put the flowers in there. He really loved coming up and helping me. Next, I wanted to put our sub greeting on, and I just took a piece of white cardstock here and a greeting from that Inside Kindness stamp, and I'm going to use my vintage photo to stamp that down. And the nice thing about this stamp set is it has coordinating dies for every greeting, and I absolutely love this. Now I'm going to modify this one just a little bit, which I think is really cool to do, especially that it has the dies that you can easily kind of trim things out or kind of modify the greeting to fit your card. Because I want the card to say, "Love your kindness," which I think is a really sweet greeting. It's not necessarily a Valentine's. You could send this to a friend or a coworker or somebody who's done something really nice for you or your family. And all I'm going to do is just trim off that 4, and it looks like it was made that way. And I love the font on this. Honeybee knocked it out of the park with this set. I love every greeting in it, and I know that this card, or excuse me, I know that that stamp set is going to get a lot of use. And I'm just adhering that nice and flat, and I think it looks so pretty. And I wanted to stamp a greeting on the inside as well, because I had those extra florals and I didn't want them to go to waste. You took all that time to color them, and I wanted to make sure I had something on the inside as well. So I'm going to take another greeting from that stamp set. I'm going to use the one that says, "You're the reason I smile today." That is one of my absolute favorites from this stamp set. This greeting could easily just seriously brighten somebody's day, and I really like that a lot. So I'm taking those extra florals, I'm going to adhere them to the inside of the card, being careful that I don't use too much adhesive that it oozes out and glues the card together. Get that situated near the bottom, and then we can stamp down our greeting. And I'm going to use that same vintage photo Distress Oxide inks. Kind of fussed around where I wanted to place that greeting. Again, I really love this stamp set. I love the mix of the fonts and the greetings, because it's not just, for Valentine's or love. It's lots of thank yous and thinking of yous and all those sorts of things, which I think are great. And I had a little bit of a boo-boo. I had a little bit of extra ink, and the way that I got rid of that is I just took a mono sand eraser and I worked at it very gently and just rubbed it away. It's still there, very kind of subtle. As long as you take your time and you don't go too deep, it'll go away. Now, I probably could have just cut the card panel in half and, just re-glued everything, but I didn't want to add any more dimension. Next, I'm taking some crystal drops from Nouveau. This is Dandelion Yellow and Simply White, and I'm going to add a few of those scattered around the card just to add a little bit more interest. And I was going to try to go in with my glitter pen and add a little bit of shine, but then I remembered that these are oxides and they will react to that glitter pen, and I didn't want to mess up any of my painting or any of my stamped greetings. So I just left that part out. And that will finish up this card today. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of cards here on my YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe. Looking forward to sharing more cards in my love-themed series. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch up with you guys again real soon. Bye!
On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more videos at my YouTube channel.